Welcome to the Deep Dive. You ready to prep for an interview as an ag, forestry, and fishery vocational teacher?
You bet. I think we've got some great info to help your listeners.
We really do. A whole bunch, from RoleCatcher career guides, interview guides, the whole 9 yards.
And we're going to break it all down so you not only have the right answers, but you really get what interviewers are looking for.
All right, let's start with the basics. What exactly does this teacher do? I was looking at RoleCatcher Career Guide, and they talk about this cool combo of knowing this stuff and actually doing it.
Yeah, it's this interesting mix. Part teacher, part mentor, part like a field guide almost.
I like that.
You know, getting students ready for careers in industries that really impact all of us.
And those fields are changing so quickly these days. Like sustainability and being good to the environment, that's not just talk anymore.
It's essential, yeah.
And RoleCatcher really stresses that. They've even got this thing that looks at job descriptions and then tells you how to tweak your resume and cover letter so those skills pop, especially with all these AI systems companies use now.
It's like a secret weapon almost,
Right.
because those systems can be tricky, but RoleCatcher helps you use the right language so you get noticed.
So smart. But let's be real, the interview is the real deal breaker.
Totally. So let's dive into some of those common interview questions and see what RoleCatcher's interview guide has to say.
Perfect. All right, question 1. Can you describe your experience in agriculture, forestry, or fishery? Pretty basic, right?
You'd think. But it's not just about listing jobs and internships.
Oh.
They're looking for those moments, those stories that show your passion.
So don't just say you worked on a farm.
Right. Like RoleCatcher says, mention internships, volunteer work, even if you helped out on your family farm growing up. Anything that shows you've got dirt under your fingernails.
Got it. And don't just tell, show.
Right. Exactly. Talk about a specific project, the challenges, the skills you learned.
So like a story.
Yes, a story that shows your experience. Because they might even ask, what specific skills did you learn from those experiences? So be ready with that practical knowledge.
Always be ready for the follow-up. Okay, question 2. How do you keep up with the latest trends and developments in the industry? This one feels a bit tougher.
It's all about showing that you're curious, a lifelong learner. Mention industry publications, websites you follow, anything that shows you're genuinely interested.
Okay, so like reading journals and articles.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher also says to mention any courses or conferences you've been to, shows you're serious about staying current.
Makes sense.
And be ready for this. What's a recent development that really excites you, and why? Have a specific example in mind, something that really grabbed your attention.
Okay, here's one I'm curious about. How do you create a positive and inclusive learning environment? Because it's more than just teaching, right? It's about creating a space where everyone feels welcome.
Absolutely. And interviewers want to see that you understand that a diverse classroom needs a thoughtful approach. RoleCatcher talks about active listening, communication, and valuing differences. It's about making sure every student feels seen and heard.
So it goes beyond just saying, I treat everyone equally.
For sure. They might even ask, can you share an example of how you've created an inclusive environment?
Ooh, so have a good story ready.
A story that shows your commitment to making a welcoming and supportive space for all your students.
Speaking of stories, what got you into this field? I can hear the passion in your voice.
You know, it's funny. It was actually, I spent a summer volunteering on this organic farm during college,
Ooh.
and I was blown away by how dedicated the farmers were, how they were using these sustainable practices to, grow food, but also protect the environment.
Wow.
And I realized I wanted to be part of that movement, to empower the next generation, to make a real difference.
That's fantastic. And it says a lot about the impact these careers have. But back to the interview questions. Up next, we have a classic. Can you walk me through your lesson planning process?
This one is like they want to peek inside your head.
Right.
They want to see that you're organized and thoughtful when you plan lessons.
So how would you suggest tackling this one?
RoleCatcher says break it down. How do you set learning goals, pick content, choose how you're going to assess students, show them you're intentional in your approach,
Makes sense.
and explain why you make certain choices, like how your plan fits with the curriculum and meets the needs of your students. They might ask, how do you make sure your lessons are engaging and relevant? So be ready to connect theory and practice.
Oh, and speaking of relevance, the career guide talks about some super cool new teaching techniques.
Oh yeah, like what?
They mention forestry programs that are using drones and VR simulations to give students a taste of the real world.
Wow, that's incredible.
So you need to know your stuff, but also be open to new tech. All right, on to question 5. How do you assess student learning and progress? Feels like a tricky one.
Assessment can be tough, but it's so important for understanding how students learn. RoleCatcher suggests going beyond just tests and quizzes.
So like what?
Think projects, presentations, even having students lead discussions. Show a more well-rounded approach.
Makes sense. And I guess giving feedback is super important too, right?
Totally. Explain how you give feedback to students and even more importantly, how you change your teaching based on how they're doing. They might ask, can you describe a time when you adjusted your teaching based on feedback or how your students were performing?
Have an example ready.
Got it.
And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can really help, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It can give you feedback on your answers to these types of questions.
Yep.
It looks for keywords and phrases interviewers love and even suggests ways to make your answers even better.
It's like having a personal interview coach.
All right, on to question 6. Can you describe a time when you had to adapt your teaching style to meet the needs of a specific student or group of students?
Here's where you highlight how you can tailor your teaching to different learning styles. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes telling a story here.
Oh.
Yeah. So pick a situation where you faced a challenge, how you adapted, and the positive result you achieved. Be ready for that follow-up too. What strategies do you use to identify and address individual learning needs?
So it's all about creating a learning environment where everyone can thrive.
Exactly.
All right, question 7. How do you encourage student engagement in the classroom? I think we all remember those classes that were a drag.
Oh, tell me about it.
And then the ones where you couldn't wait to participate.
Exactly. And creating that dynamic environment is key. RoleCatcher suggests going beyond just lecturing.
So like what?
Think about group projects, hands-on stuff, even friendly debates. Show that you're not afraid to think outside the box and keep students actively involved. And here's a curveball for you. How do you create a classroom culture that encourages participation even from the quieter students?
A good one.
Yeah, have some strategies in mind for creating a safe space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts.
Okay, on a roll. Question 8. How do you incorporate technology into your teaching?
And this is a big one, especially in today's world.
Definitely. What does RoleCatcher say about this one?
They say to talk about specific tech tools you've used successfully in the classroom.
So like interactive whiteboards, educational apps, online simulations.
All of that. Even those forestry drones we talked about earlier.
It's all so cool. But tech shouldn't just be for show, right?
Definitely not. Be ready to explain how you make sure your tech use has a purpose and aligns with what you're teaching. They might even ask, how do you balance technology with hands-on learning?
That's so important. Balance is key. All right, we're getting close to the end, but these last two are important. Question 9. How do you handle student discipline in the classroom?
Ooh, yeah. Every teacher dreads this one, no matter how experienced they are.
No kidding. So what's the best way to approach this question?
RoleCatcher says focus on preventing problems before they happen. Talk about setting clear expectations, establishing routines, and using positive reinforcement. And have a story, a specific example of a tough discipline situation you handled and how you resolved it.
So showing you can handle conflict, but still keep that respectful and supportive environment.
Exactly. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help with this question too. It'll look over your answer and suggest ways to make it even stronger.
So helpful. Okay, final question, and it's a personal one. Can you describe a time when you had to resolve a conflict with a student or colleague?
Conflict.
Yeah, it happens.
But it's all about how you handle it. Pick a situation that shows your people skills, your ability to deal with tough situations. Explain the steps you took, the outcome, and most importantly, what you learned.
And I bet they'll ask, how has this experience shaped your approach to conflict resolution?
Right. Probably. They want to see growth, how you've learned from those experiences.
Wow. We just tackled 10 tough interview questions. I feel so much more prepared.
Me too.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the Career Guide's insights on career progression. Tell me more.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about what happens after you nail that interview. Because the journey doesn't end there, does it? Definitely not. The RoleCatcher Career Guide actually lays out some of the different stages in your career as an ag, forestry, and fishery vocational teacher.
Ooh, tell me more. What kind of progression are we talking about here?
Well, it's not always linear, but the guide outlines a few common paths. You might start as an assistant teacher.
Okay, and what would that look like?
You'd be supporting senior teachers, helping develop teaching materials, really getting to know the ropes.
So building those foundational skills.
Exactly. And from there, you could move up to junior teacher.
Okay, and what does a junior teacher do?
You'd be leading your own classes, developing and delivering lessons, mentoring students, and even doing research to stay on top of your field.
Oh, that research element is interesting. It shows real dedication.
Oh, it's essential in these fields. They're always changing. Then, as you gain experience, you could become a senior teacher.
Okay. What would I be doing as a senior teacher?
At that level, you're leading instruction, mentoring junior teachers, and working with industry professionals to make sure what you're teaching is up to date and relevant.
So it's more about leadership and shaping the curriculum.
Exactly. And if you're feeling ambitious and you have a knack for leadership, you might even become a head of department.
Wow, that's the top spot. What does that involve?
Big picture stuff. You're overseeing the whole program, managing teachers, working with industry partners, even collaborating with the school on budgeting and resources.
That's quite a journey. From assisting in the classroom to leading the whole department. It's pretty amazing to see those opportunities for growth.
It really is. And what I find really cool is that the career guide also talks about transferable skills. So even if you're switching careers, your passion and experience can really be valuable.
So someone with, say, an environmental science background could transition into teaching.
Absolutely. Their knowledge would be a huge asset in the classroom. They might need to brush up on some teaching skills, but that passion and expertise are super valuable.
So you've aced the interview, landed the job, and you're on this amazing career path. But with all this technology changing so rapidly, what skills are future ag, forestry, and fishery teachers going to need? To be successful, I mean. It feels like technology is changing everything so fast.
It really is, and the RoleCatcher Career Guide actually touches on that. They emphasize how important it is for teachers to really embrace new tech.
Like what specifically?
Well, think about it. We've got precision agriculture using sensors and data to grow more crops, drones for monitoring forests, and smart fishing tech that's, changing how we fish.
Wow. That's a lot to keep up with.
Right. But then how do you bring those cutting-edge advancements into the classroom?
Yeah. How do you teach that stuff?
Well, that's the fun part, isn't it? Imagine using virtual reality to, simulate a forestry operation or teaching students how to analyze data from farm sensors or even having them program drones for aerial surveys.
That's incredible. I'd love to take those classes.
Right.
But it's more than just fancy tools, right? It's about giving those students the skills they need to succeed in these industries.
You got it. Critical thinking, problem solving, data analysis, those are going to be so important. And don't forget things like being adaptable and always wanting to learn new things. I mean, technology is constantly evolving. Teachers have to stay ahead of the game.
So for someone listening who's about to go into that interview, what's the one thing they should remember?
I'd say be ready to talk about how you would bring these new technologies and 21st century skills into your teaching. Show them you're not just teaching for today, you're prepping students for the future.
I love that. Be forward-thinking, be passionate, and be ready to embrace all these exciting changes.
Exactly. And remember, RoleCatcher is there every step of the way. Their AI tools can really help you fine-tune your answers, highlight your strengths, and just present yourself as the perfect candidate.
It really is like having a personal career coach in your pocket.
It is.
Well, I think we covered a ton today. Understanding this unique teaching role, tackling tough interview questions, and even peeking into the future of these industries.
We did. We looked at the nitty-gritty, the challenges, and the amazing opportunities that come with being an ag, forestry, and fishery vocational teacher.
So to everyone listening, as you start this exciting journey, remember this. You have the power to inspire the next generation.
You can inspire future environmental stewards, innovators, and problem solvers.
Absolutely. And as you step into that classroom, think about this. How are you going to use your knowledge and passion to shape the future of these vital industries? It's a big question.
It is, but it's worth thinking about as you embark on this incredible path.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.